Welcome to Fun and Fundraising, everybody, the podcast where we talk with people behind top nonprofit galas and signature fundraising events to showcase how they positively transform their communities. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, and today we have two very special guests on. So we have Maria Jimenz-Lara, who is the CEO of the Naples Children's Foundation, as well as Jamie Ulmer, who is the CEO of Healthcare Network. And we're going to talk a little bit about beneficiaries of what we like to call umbrella organizations on here. And basically, the Naples Children's Foundation gives funds to top nonprofits of varying things to benefit children's causes in Southwest Florida. So we're really lucky to have these two really seasoned pros here today to talk about what makes for a successful partnership between a foundation and a beneficiary organization, because that is a question that we often get asked. And there's never enough good examples that we can give. And Jamie and Maria really demonstrate some of the very best, I would say, in the United States. I would put them up against anybody in terms of the impact that they do when two great organizations work together. So with that, Jamie, Maria, welcome. And I'm just thrilled that you're both here today.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for having us, Rob. Um, when Maria asked me about this, I said, I would love to. How do you say no to what NCF has done for our community and our children, especially when there might be some free wine tasting afterwards? Just kidding.
Wine and
You did
bubbles
say,
get you everywhere.
you did say fun. I think we will have a lot of fun today.
Absolutely. Well, let's start by, sharing what the mission of each of your organizations is. So, Jamie, we'll start with you, and then Maria, you can talk a little bit about the mission of your organization.
Now, our mission is very simple. Healthcare Network's mission is to provide quality healthcare accessible to all. We believe in breaking down barriers, whether they be financially, culturally, geographically, so that every child and family in our community, Collier County, can get care that they need. Together, between us and NCF, our missions have translated into a tremendous impact for our community and our children. So
That's incredible. And, I can't wait to dive in more into the ways that you all have done that over the years. And Maria, I'd love for you to share what the mission of the Naples Children's Foundation is.
Thank you. And of course, we're excited to be here. NCF's mission is to create lasting change by investing in proven programs that transform the lives of vulnerable children in Collier County.
Super simple and super right to the point, and I
Right.
love that. And and what I love about umbrella organizations is that you provide impact to where it's most needed and it's going to benefit the most people. And the Naples Children's Foundation is world class in how it's run. And I'd love for you to share how NCF goes about selecting beneficiary organizations and what in particular stands out about Healthcare Network.
So I always preface that by saying being funded by NCF is not for the faint of heart. Um, we work really hard to develop partnerships, but we expect a lot of our partners. We try our very best to fund without red tape. But we also are very interested in creating a trusting, long-lasting relationship. Um, we have a 12-member grant committee with that's made up of individuals that are trustees and are part of our organization. And so they oversee the grant application process. We get anywhere between 60 and 80 grants a year. And we take 6 months to review each one and determine if they fit the needs that we're trying to, meet in a particular year. It's a pretty thorough evaluation because people do visits. We go into 990s. We look at boards. We look at board composition. Is there, our organization's board, giving? And so we just look at all the different types of things that are important to know about an organization, in addition to the quality of their work and the sustainability of their work. So it's a very thorough, tedious process, but we take our job seriously. We raise money every year to meet the needs of our community, and we go back to those same people. So we want to make sure that we are being true to our donors and then true to the community.
I love that. True to the donors and true to the community. And you brought up several really good points there. One that I kind of want to ask for is, you mentioned a board, and I know you all have like the best of the best boards, in really around the country. What do you look for in a board specifically? Like when you're kind of vetting the organizations, what are some things about board members that you're kind of looking for that you're like, okay, you know what, this organization's really got it together?
I think so. We look at what percentage of the board supports the organization. So, to all the people out there listening that are on boards, thank you for your work because it's a thankless job, and board members don't get paid for board members, not nonprofits don't get paid. But also, we want to look at their level of involvement. Are they involved at an appropriate board level? So their job is to support the CEO and the mission of the organization, not necessarily to run the organization, and it's a delicate balance, but we have found over the years that, a strong committed board will make sure that the organization stays on track. And so we look for, some variety on a board, some experience on a board. When you see an organization and every single board member has never been a board member before, it makes you a little nervous. So there needs to be a blend of seasoned and new people, and a really, I think, a passion and a love for the cause of the board that they're on. They have to believe in the organization they're on their board for. If not, it's as a CEO, it's hard to navigate that when you have a board, or board members that really don't want to be there. So I think it's definitely, willingness, knowledge, experience, and a little generosity is good too.
And this,
Absolutely.
and this
Go
is
ahead.
exactly why we work so well together.
Yeah.
Because, being a federally qualified health center and the only one in Collier County, what makes us different, but meets exactly to what Maria spoke about, is that 51% of our board members must be patients. So they're telling us exactly how we're operating and the quality of care that we're providing. They're showing, they see it. I get a call about a picture leaning on the wall. I mean, who knows anything, because they are patients. They see it, they feel it, they touch it, they know the operations of the organization. And so that speaks to exactly the passion, the commitment that Maria is talking about as being a board member.
I want to ask you about, all right, so how do you go about selecting patients and inquiring to get them to be board members? Because that's a
Hard.
more organizations need to do that. And I got to imagine when you're dealing with something as personal as healthcare, that there's probably some additional logistical things, we'll just say, for lack of a better term, you have to go through to get people to say yes. So, tell us a little bit about that and just what advice you would give to anyone looking to ask ask someone to be on a board who directly benefits from the organization's services.
Now, we do have some Department of Health and Human Services from HRSA requirements, one of those being the 51% board members. But also, it's asked that we place board members that look like the patients, that are of the demographic of the patients. And so I would say that our board looks just like our patients and feels like our patients. It's multilingual. We don't just have people who may speak Spanish and English. There's people who speak Creole, French, that are on our board members. And so we're diverse, just like the patients that we see. And so, to be honest with you, a lot of the recommendations we get oftentimes of board members are from our providers. And so the providers, we have approximately 80 to 90 providers who may say, I have a patient that I think would be a very good board member. And oftentimes that does occur. Now, there are some expertise areas that we need board members in. Financial, as you know, healthcare finances, especially right now, is some of the most complex type of financials that an organization could have. And so we do look towards having folks that have a financial background, especially if it's in healthcare. We also look for being in our community, which is rich in philanthropy, someone who has knowledge in philanthropy and in those particular areas of wealth administration. And so it's very dynamic and fluid, but it must look like who we serve in our community.
Very, very well said. And we talk on this show often about human, financial, and social capital. And basically, what you described is all three of those are absolutely required to, create a successful board. And you just explained that so well. And I'd love for you to share a little bit about how you, as well as the healthcare network, initially got engaged and involved with Naples Children's Foundation.
Well, I'm going to say this, it's definitely before my time, long before I was probably still in high school, but no, I'm just kidding. It wasn't quite that long ago, but it was probably over 20 years ago that Naples Children Foundation funded our Ronald McDonald Caramobile. This was back around 2004. And that was one of the first opportunities that Healthcare Network had in a funding opportunity with NCF, and it went tremendous. That opportunity is still going today. And so that mobile unit is still out there seeing kids in our Title I schools throughout Collier County. And it continues to reduce barriers, improve children's health outcomes, and build community trust. Because when you're seeing the children, I can be somewhere in the community and one of the providers that are off of that mobile unit is walking with me, and one of those kids from one of those schools see them. They know them by name. They know exactly who they are. And so we must continue to build that trust. And this partnership would not be where it is today without NCF. And, I will probably be saying that about 10 to 20 times. We would not be here today if it were not for NCF.
That's amazing. And I love that your initial Ronald McDonald Vehicle project is still operational 2 decades later. I mean, think about that. That was before Facebook and Instagram, everyone. I mean, we're talking
Hello.
that's
You're telling Maria's age.
Hey, according to everyone's press release, we all graduated high school in 2003. So we're
Right,
all
exactly.
we're all quite young here. So that's how it works on this program. So I'd love to hear, and I'm glad that, you're talking about how it kind of predated you, Jamie, and Maria, that you've been involved with it for a while. I think you're the perfect person to ask. How has the healthcare network, Maria, Naples Children's Foundation partnership evolved over the last 2 decades?
So I think, as Jamie said, our first project was the Ronald McDonald Caramobile, and I think one of the reasons that we're a little different like than other funding sources. We like to look at the data and figure out what the needs of our community are, and then we go to trusted partners like Healthcare Network and say, "Do you think that you might be willing to do this if we gave you a grant to do it?" And Healthcare Network has had really smart leaders like Jamie that have said, yes, of course we'll do that. But there have also been logical answers. We see them as experts in the field and as our partners because we've always go back to our partners and say, we're thinking about this. And we might think it's a fabulous idea. And fortunately, we have a good relationship with our partners where they might say, I don't think that'll work, but maybe this will work. Or if we did it this way or in this community. So it's kind of like this constant conversation. And I think with Healthcare Network, we've had that relationship for years. Where it's a trusted relationship, but they're the experts in the field. They're trying to help the same people we're trying to help. They're trying to help the same children. So we've been able to, come together and align on a lot of projects and a lot of initiatives. One, because we have a common mission and objective, but also we listen to each other and we try to find ways to uniquely meet the needs of the community. We have a very rural community where we're at. And so that Ronald McDonald Mobile actually was the inspiration to a whole bunch of other mobile units there's an oral health care one. There's one for disaster relief that we've been able to, creatively put together and lead and take advantage of when it's needed, but also, in unique circumstances. So it's been a great relationship.
That's amazing. Jamie, what do you have to add?
No, I speak volumes to what Maria said. Oftentimes that I've spoken in many different events and said that I've traveled the world being in the military, And if every community had an NCF, um, the world would be a better place. When I look at the children in this community, and again, we see over 50% of all children in our county. I mean, you're talking about potentially close to 40,000 children. And so when we work collaboratively and work together, it can make a tremendous impact, from the Ronald McDonald Care Mobile to the pediatric dental residency program that started this past June with the IV sedation.
Mhm.
Strategically, they saw 3 or 4 years ago that there was this great need of children who needed to be fully sedated and otherwise would not be able to receive that care. And so when we built a building, NCF again was there to help us to build this facility to have two minor surgical wards that were able to provide fully sedation for these children. And there is no other federally qualified health center in the state of Florida who has this. Why? NCF. Our program at Manatee Middle School, it's a school that's an all walk community. And parents have to take off from work, children have to miss school for them to pick up the children and take them to one of our healthcare facilities. We now have a healthcare facility within the school. So it impacts not only Manatee Middle School, but Manatee Elementary School. And so these children now have this facility in that community right there on that campus. Again, would not have happened without NCF. And the list goes on and on of different programs. We were just approved for a Wellness Warrior program that is going to make a tremendous impact tackling the epidemic of childhood obesity, teaching kids and their families, not just a kid, but their families, practical ways to build healthier lifestyles. And we're already seeing the impacts of this. We were only supposed to have about 50 kids enrolled into this program. We now have 120 kids. Their BMIs
Wow.
and their A1C levels are already decreasing. And when the parents see what these children are eating, they're like, well, I need to lose a few pounds. Let me try that. And so it's impacting. I know this is for the children. NCF is all about the children, but they're now impacting the entire family.
That
So this relationship only continues to get stronger and stronger and stronger every day.
Well, I loved hearing about these things. It's actually a good thing into the next question that I already kind of have planned in the back of my mind. And none of these things, Jamie or Maria, anything that you've mentioned today doesn't happen without long-term planning. So I'd
Mhm.
love, Maria, we can start with you, and then Jamie, feel free to chime in, but talk about the importance of long-term planning when you're choosing strategic partnership initiatives throughout the Naples community.
So, as a foundation and funding source, long-term planning really has to be um, something that the organization is committed to and willing to say, okay, we're going to do this, and it's going to take 3 to 5 years or 10 years, and really understanding that our goal is to make a change, or our goal is to build a system. I always talk about, one of my biggest source of pride at NCF is the systems of care we've created. So if we were to go away as an organization, the system is still there, the relationships, the trust, the communication is still there. But we've created those based on data. Back in 2005, we did a study on just what are the needs, and this community looked very different in 2005. There weren't a lot of services for anybody that wasn't insured, or of people of need. So we started a lot of programs, worked with partners like Healthcare Network, but the long-term planning is key. And we base all of our long-term planning on data. And so every 5 years we do an independent study of just the data. We usually partner with a university or another research type group. And we just look at the numbers and look at the data and look at what are the trends, there are things that we know we can have an impact on, there are things that we know we can't. And we kind of direct and make commitments and decisions on those areas and kind of keep going forward.
Fantastic. And Jamie, I'd love to hear about it from Healthcare Network's perspective. How you do the strategic long-term planning and how that allows you to be the best partner possible for NCF, and that Maria feels comfortable enough picking up the phone and saying, I've got this initiative. I'd love for you all to to take the lead on it.
No, absolutely. I mean, long-term planning is absolutely essential, and it's very critical to what we do day in and day out, especially in primary care, in our relationship with NCF. You know, I would tell you in today's world, I've never seen in healthcare administration how one stroke of an ink pen can change the day-to-day operations within a hospital or how we fundamentally care for people. But it's been happening over the last 5 years. And so strategic planning, especially when collaborating with an organization like NCF, is critical that we place that in our long-term planning. You know, when I think about our strategic planning today, it does not, um, it could never not include NCF because there are multiple strategic planning things that we do that obviously have a tremendous impact on our children and our community. When I mentioned to you about the Ronald McDonald Care Mobile, 20 years, this is a strategic planning that we're on our third mobile unit that we've had to sunset for this program. When you talk about the dental apparatuses and hydraulics and all the things that go into these units, it's a complex operation. The way that they have to have consent forms go out to these schools, the parents sign them, the children come to the unit. It's not something that you can just plan on a short-term vision. And for this program to still go 20 years, it took obviously strategic planning. For us to build a 55,000 square foot facility with over 20 dental pediatric exam rooms and two operatories for fully sedation took strategic planning almost 5 to 10 years out of what that building would look like, and to know that we have the trust, the backing of NCF to be able to do that. So I think it's very intentional. Our strategic planning within our own organization and with our own board of directors, we do needs assessment statements with the community, the Department of Health. We include NCF, NCH, our community hospital that's here with us. And when you put all these collaborations together, we can successfully strategically plan on what we will look like going into the future.
So well said, and I'm so glad that you mentioned, the really big initiatives can take a decade, and I'm really glad that you bring that up. And when you work in the nonprofit space, you want to help as many people as quickly as possible, but you also want to help them in the best way possible, and that's where strategic long-term planning is so essential. And Maria, you had brought up earlier, you had made the comment, I want to dive into a little bit, that certain things, which things are good for NCF to fund and which ones are not. So talk about how NCF decides which specific initiatives to support, whether it's with Healthcare Network or whether it's with the broader Collier County community.
Sure. After lots of research and tracking data, probably about 12 years ago, we looked at sort of the trends and things that we were funding, and we found ourselves funding early learning, out of school age type programs, advocacy programs that help children in the dependency system or foster care system, and then healthcare. Like those seem to be the recurring applicants, but also the needs that kept growing in our community. So we funded those four basic categories. We selectively do brick and mortar. We like to be part of the inside of a project, not necessarily the outside of a building. And we want to make sure that our dollars are, used for long periods of time. So we try to find sustainable partners or partners that can generate a sense of sustainability for the projects that we fund. So it's usually we try to stay away from something we have to fund every single year the same over and over again. We want the organizations we fund to diversify their own fundraising so that they're less dependent on us, or so that they can do newer projects with our funds.
Absolutely. And when they're less dependent on you, it allows you as a foundation to more broadly impact the community. And if they can effectively take the gifts, and I'm going to call them that you've provided them, whether it's, a Ronald McDonald movie or whatever it may be, if they're able to do that, it allows you to expand your footprint throughout the community. And I just think that's an fantastic strategy to do that. And one thing that has been very clear to me talking to the two of you is that you two communicate well with one another. And
Or Jamie, I'm like,
No, no, it's when Maria calls, you answer. When Maria and her team call or text, I stop what I'm doing and make sure that we respond.
Well, and I was going to say, so, we talk about that in jest, but, talk about how important, Jamie, communication is in creating a successful long-term partnership, because you have to communicate well in order for the longevity of any relationship, whether it's business professional, to continue.
Well, I'm gonna first say this. No long-term partnership um, doesn't go without its challenges, and you're just going to see that it's almost like family. There's some days you like each other, you love each other, and some days you're not sure about each other. That's not necessarily the case with us in NCF, but I'm speaking holistically that when you have relationships over a long period of time, you're going to have those bump in the roads. But I will tell you, trust and transparency. When you build trust with an organization like NCF, it goes a long way. And when you're transparent, and sometimes I'm probably too transparent, but I want to make sure that everyone understands and knows exactly where we are, whether it's financial, whether it's our budget, whether a program can be sustainable. We're both very well intentioned. Our partnership is well intentioned. What we plan and what we want to do for our community is well intentioned. And so we both want to make a lasting impact in our community. And so when we have that communication and the trust and the transparency, good, bad, some days it might even be ugly. The truth always sets us free in how we can take care of our community, and however that is, we come together. And so I would say communication is the most single important thing, but that trust and that transparency definitely weighs heavy.
I'm really glad that you brought up, Jamie, that communication of all types is important, not just the good, but also the things that are not so good, or the things that need to be worked through, or the things that are a challenge. When you have that, like you said, you build that trust. Communication is the groundwork, but trust is the end result of that groundwork. And Maria, I'd love to hear that from a foundation perspective. What are some things that, your most strategic partners like Healthcare Network have in common in terms of how you communicate with them successfully?
So I think there's a couple things. One, I think they understand our role as a philanthropic organization, the community, and our responsibility to the people that donate to us, and what we intend to report back to them. So the organizations we fund really understand that dynamic, that we have a responsibility and have accepted responsibility to continue raising money every year, but we also we're accountable, just like the organizations we fund are accountable. So that's a very clear understanding. And I think philanthropy's role in lots of community is to sometimes, I'll use the word pusher, to kind of say, well, let's test the boundary and try this new program. Or I saw a model in, Texas that maybe and I think having that trusted relationship where we have people like Jamie or other CEOs that can tell us, great idea, it's never going to work here. Or, we can have like a conversation about what we're trying to accomplish. And then our beneficiaries can say, we have the expertise, and we know our beneficiaries have the expertise. So we never come into a new topic or a new project thinking that we know it all, because we don't. We surround ourselves with experts like Healthcare Network, and really rely on them to give us guidance on, is this a great idea or not, or this will work but if you have to change these three different things. So I think that's really important. And I think that's been a key to the success of a lot of the projects that we've built across our community, with providers like Jamie, but with other partners as well, is that we have that two-way conversation, but also an understanding that we're just like they're accountable to us. We're accountable to a whole other group of people, that we want to make sure that all of our numbers and all of our data can stand on its own.
And sometimes, Rob, it's not quite that eloquent. It's sometimes what are y'all thinking of? What? No, we can't
What?
do
Where did you get this
that.
idea? Where did you go?
Exactly.
So
But go
it
ahead,
is fun
Jamie.
to say, "Hey, I have an idea," and have like and just see people cringe and say, "Oh God, now what?"
Here we
Um,
go again. Here we
Here
go
we go again.
again.
Yeah.
So, Jamie, I'm sorry about that. Please go ahead.
No, I said sometimes it's not as eloquent as that. Sometimes it's like, no, that's probably not going to work, or we're not sure. Or, one of the things that I really appreciate about NCF is that they really test you to make sure that what you're being funded for is sustainable. It's not something that you are going to get funded for every day, every year from here into eternity. It's something that we need to develop a program to make sure that it can be funded and continue to make an impact in the community. So,
Oh, fantastic, and very well said. And one thing I want to talk, and we've kind of touched upon it, but not really. And I think it's an important thing, especially with partnerships, is and Jamie, I'd love for you to go first with this one, and then Maria chime in. But what are some ways that you identify, when a project gets completed that NCF helps fund? How do you go about creating more awareness in the community? And kind of, do you involve NCF in all of them? Do you do some of them on your own, or is it some mix, or, in between of how you get the word out of the end result of your collaboration?
you know, truth of the matter to that question is that about 80% of everything we do, we could actually put NCF on that item, whether it be a van, a mobile unit, whether it be our surgical ward in our NC Nicholas Community Health Center building, because the impact is limitless. I mean, the the things that NCF has done for our organization to allow us to make our community healthier is just unbelievable. And it extends throughout the entire organization. I mean, we do things very specific to obviously one of the mobile units that we use to transport children across the peninsula to Nicholas Hospital, Children's Hospital, is a mobile unit van that has their information on it and how we're our relationship is with using funds that allow us to be able to transport this child across the peninsula. Um, our marketing and public relations team does a very good job at highlighting everything that NCF does, whether it be through print, social media. I would submit to you that we have a very good platform on our social media as well as our webpage that we help people to identify and know that without this organization, without NCF, this program would not actually be occurring. Um, you know, I really like the idea that NCF doesn't necessarily do branded sponsorships of different events throughout the community. However, because of other programs that they've been able to do with us that allows us to obviously take care of children in the community, we do get the opportunity to use their branding. And I cannot wait for the new branding letters so that we can post that in different areas. I know it's coming. I know we're already saying Naples Children Foundation, so I'm excited about it. But we will use that signage, of course, with permission in areas that they have made a tremendous impact.
And Maria, I'd love to hear your thoughts on, just highlighting, and I know that NCF tends to be more the co-star part of the ensemble, and they let the organization be the star a lot of times. But talk a little bit about, if there's any particular initiatives where it's like, okay, you know what, we're just gonna announce this together collaboratively just because it may be a super wide community initiative or something like that.
So I'm not sure if that's segue for what one of the reasons we invited Jamie to be part of this podcast is because of their healthcare network's tremendous impact on healthcare, and they're our biggest healthcare partner. Healthcare happens to be our fund in need and our sort of call to action this year at our annual fundraiser, the Naples Winter Wine Festival, that takes place January 30th to February 1st. But we will be doing focusing on children's health care, and that includes primary care, vision, oral health, and mental health. And we want to make sure that we do everything we can to support those needs in our community as the community changes and young people have even more complex lives than we can ever imagine. The needs continue. So whether you attend the festival or not, you can still donate to um, Naples Children Foundation and support our healthcare initiatives. And health, if the kids aren't healthy, then how will they be able to take advantage of all the other tools and opportunities that our incredible school system has to offer, or our partner organizations like Boys and Girls Club, or Guadalupe Center, or all these other groups. So it's healthcare to us it's a big pillar in the kinds of things that we support, and it's critical. We have to have healthy kids.
Absolutely. And you all have done, so many wonderful initiatives over the years. I'd love Jamie first and then Maria. What is a particular moment in this partnership that you're particularly proud of or especially proud of?
I honestly, that's hard to just choose just one moment. The impact of our partnership with NCF on children's health in Collier County has been tremendous. Look, Collier County is the healthiest county in the state of Florida. That is directly because of NCF. The funding that is put back into this community with our children in different programs from a healthcare standpoint has impacted these children and these families so much that it's extended to us to be the healthiest community in the state of Florida. And I would submit to you, one of the healthiest throughout the entire country. And it's because of NCF and the programs that they fund. So it's not a single milestone. It's obviously our work relationship, our trust, our transparency with each other. And it's just, I'm very proud to be able to work with NCF, work with Maria, work with her team. Her grants administrator, and Sarah, please forgive me if I'm not pronouncing your title correctly, but she has done a tremendous job at
Yes.
keeping us all in line. And I would just say that just proud to be able to work with them.
That's a beautiful answer. And it's basically because you are the healthiest county in Florida, every day is a moment you're proud of because you get to say that as a leader of Healthcare Network. I thought that was a beautiful, beautiful answer. And Maria, I know you've been involved with Healthcare Network for a minute, on the foundation side. Is there, I know you probably echo most of Jamie's sentiments, but is there a particular moment that you kind of remember over the years where you were like, gosh, that was just amazing what they were able to do?
So I'm trying to, like, where do I start, right? So so I have a really the coolest part of my job is when I get to talk about like what's accomplished. So we've had one of the care mobiles come out to our facility, for our board members to tour. I don't even know if they had like a vision or a visual of this. Like, this is full healthcare on wheels, and it goes wherever we want it to. The IV sedation in at the Nichols campus, that's unheard of in a federally qualified health center where, children with special needs or other issues can actually receive the care that they need. When I see we have an in-school clinic in the east part of our county, which, we have so many families that were not able to, access care because of just, again, our geography is kind of interesting here in Collier County. So that, opportunity, the fact that we have a healthcare network clinic and office attached to our YMCA. And so families that go to the YMCA and kids that go to the YMCA, that's all right there. So I think access to care is so important. And we all understand the reasons why people can't access care, transportation, or they can't take time off of work or whatever. And so we've been able to create programs after hours, on weekends, mobile, on site, so that that access to care happens. And so I think, I could go on and on. We have a lot of different projects that we do with Healthcare Network that, that I love, that are just, really amazing. We have an integrated care model with mental health that has, just changed how mental health care is provided in our community. And it's taken a lot of years to get there, but we have a really nice system and really true trusted partnerships, not just with us, but among mental health providers, healthcare network, other competing institutions even, they all come together. We all leave our respective name tags at the door and we all just talk about, how are we going to help kids in this particular scenario or that one. Sometimes we bring in the sheriff's office to help us sort things out. So we just have so many projects that I love that we could do a whole podcast on just that.
And we'll have to
Rob,
do one another
I
time.
do want to add one thing that Maria's not really, I mean, she's given the organization great credit, but there's a couple of things outside of that. One that's not part of what we discussed is bringing people to the table. I mean, NCF and Maria and her team will bring organizations to the table that might be in the news, not even talking to each other, but yet we're still at the table trying to work to see how we're going to take care of our children in our community. And I just sit there in complete awe, like, wow, like, how did you do that? Because I wouldn't have been able to be that nice, but they do a tremendous job at getting everyone to the team who has an impact in this community. The second thing that I think that's kind of missed sometimes is what happens behind the scenes. There may be something that NCF chooses not to fund. That's okay. But I'll get a call from someone else who heard about the program or who heard about the application and says, you know what, I want to fund that. I will personally take care of that because I think that can continue to make an impact. So there are oftentimes extensions of necessarily not being funded then, but funded through their relationship of different people with it throughout the community. And last but not least, because of the relationship and the long-lasting relationship, the Manatee School project that NCF funded last year was something that I believe NCF wanted to really fund for a long time. It was something that was near and dear to Maria. And it was something that we could not really get across the finish line. And that was okay. But last year we did. That program, the superintendent spoke this past year on the school year kickoff, Dr. Riccadelli, and she said that this particular school had the lowest amount of reasons to why a kid could not come to school for a healthcare concern of all of her other schools. She wants this model on all her schools. So we're hoping NCF will fund that so we can put it in.
Well, we got to go find a lot of people, or we got to air this podcast a lot so that maybe people will donate more.
Absolutely. And I know we're coming up on time, but I want to end with this question because I think you two will just give such amazing answers. Jamie, we'll start with you, and Maria, you have the last word. And that is, what advice would you give to an organization entering their first long-term strategic partnership?
I would say that one of the most important things is that your mission truly aligns with NCF. If your mission doesn't align with specifically what they are attempting to achieve in our community, then that might not be the proper fit. I think trust is huge. I think that, NCF is going to more than likely trust you when you come to the table at first. And if you don't grow that trust, it may not grow for you. If you do not gain that trust more, it may not work. But initially, when you come to the table, I think trust and transparency is very important. It will create a stronger, growing relationship. And finally, invest in the relationship yourself. And what I mean by that is, I truly take it personal to know Maria, to know Sarah, to know members of her team, to go to lunch, to discuss what's going on in healthcare, what's going on with our children in our community, what are we seeing, and take time to really invest that, place that on my calendar, whether it's quarterly, whether it's monthly, to sit down and have conversations to what does day-to-day look like? What is the grassroots of what our children are going through? Now, that same school I spoke about had some strong behavioral health concerns a year to 2 years before that. But because we placed this in that particular school, along with behavioral health counselors for the integrated program that Maria talked about, they had the largest decrease in behavioral health concerns in that one school because someone was right there. And so I believe that when we can sit together and talk and invest within ourselves it also has played a significant role.
Trust, transparency, and investment. I mean, all three of those are brilliant, brilliant pieces of advice. And Maria, you get the last word.
And so the question is, what is my recommendation to
Yeah, for anyone entering their first long-term strategic partnership.
um so our focus is always going to be on the needs of the community and the data and what does the data tell us. So sometimes a group might say, but this is our program. But if the data doesn't match and if it's not going to, meet the needs of the community, we're going to say we got to go back to the drawing board. And trust me, we have gone back to a lot of drawing boards. And so I would say patience, persistence, but also a willingness to really problem solve. And let's look at how can we together work to address a particular issue or a need. All of our initiative partners know that we want to, if it's successful, we want to duplicate it. We want to take it to a different part of the community. So we do try to start out small with some of our projects, and then, try to take it to 3 more centers or 3 more schools or 3 more areas in the community. So we know that we have to pilot things and make sure that they're working before we can expand them. So that's important. And, we have we will treat people as they treat us. And so in the end, we're all trying to do the right thing for the children of our community. We're all trying to make sure that they're safe, they're healthy, they're thriving, and they're successful. And so everyone has their own place in that line of things for children. But ultimately, that's our ultimate goal for vulnerable children in our community. And so sometimes initiative partners just kind of have to just ride the wave with us for a little bit. You may not get all the answers you want or all the money you want, or we might fund 3 things and then there's another 2 things that we just can't fund it. We'll try to find someone that will, or it'll be back on the organization to go figure it out. But we don't ever want to be the end all be all for every single project. And most importantly, we do expect the organizations we work with to be willing to collaborate, even if it means a group that you've never collaborated before or it didn't work out before. We want our dollars to, not to last and to reach as many children. And that's only possible through collaborative efforts and through trust. In the end, we want to build a system that is effective and functions with or without us. And the collaboration is key. You have to be willing to collaborate with our partners and with each other, because there's not enough organizations to meet all the needs of all the children. There's just not. So we have to work together, and it's easier said than done because each organization has their own board, their own personality, their own forms, their own legal stuff. I mean, it's work. It's a lot of work to try to align all this stuff. But once we can get to that, then the fruits of our labor are pretty amazing.
Be willing to collaborate, everyone, and just, ride the wave and let it evolve over time. And if you do, you will wind up with a partnership like NCF and Healthcare Network. And with Maria, Jamie, thank you both so much for joining us today. This was just an absolute pleasure. You both gave just the most amazing insights, and I'm really grateful for your time.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. And the Naples Winter Wine Festival benefiting Naples Children's Foundation will be held from January 30th through February 1st, 2026 in Naples, Florida. For more information, please visit napleswinefestival.com. And for more information about Healthcare Network, visit healthcareswfl.org. And that will do it for this episode of Fun and Fundraising. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, reminding you to keep it fun, keep it interesting, and your guests will have a great time. Have a great day, everyone, and take care.